Doc, it's a pleasure to have you. So you have been a two-time entrepreneur. The first company was sold to CA. The latest company is acquired by IBM, which is where you are now. So a little reflection on the entrepreneurial side of Doc Vaidyanathan.
Sure. In fact, if you think about my entrepreneurial journey, I started with ICICI Ventures. So I actually started as a venture capitalist, investing in startup companies. That's how I kind of started out my life, because I had a BTech in computer science from IIT Kanpur and an MBA from IIM Calcutta. So the combination was something that they looked for. And so that was a great, interesting experience. So sitting on that side, looking at what others were pitching, I think that's kind of what drove me to say, enough of hearing pitching, let me go do it myself. So that's how I started and did that. And I started with one startup, which was an India-based startup, which IPO'd in India. I was a manager there. I was a senior manager there. The next one, I had a more significant role where I was a chief product officer at Arcot, which was acquired by CA. I was not a founder. I was one of the early execs and that. And this time around with Spanago, I was a founder and chief product officer there. And then IBM acquired it. It's been a wonderful journey, coming up with something which is start with a blank piece of paper and hire the people, take the idea forward, and finally see it being acquired by a larger company, getting the kind of attention it needs. It's a very satisfying journey.
I want to shift gears to the flavor of the season, AI. Obviously, we have heard throughout the day that AI is going to permeate all aspects of our lives. But the aspect that you are working on and you're passionate about currently is governance and how that can impact and influence governance. So share with us the landscape of where it should be and what you're working on.
So AI is not new. Of course, it's become more popular now because of things like ChatGPT and generative AI, where you can ask a question and get very complete answers. AI has been around for many, many years. In fact, my undergraduate thesis was on AI, which was on knowledge representation. At that time, we were talking about AI as coming in cognition, in how children learn, and can computers learn the same way, and things of that nature. Whereas today, it is based on billions of parameters, huge volumes of data, and statistical analysis, and driving it. So it's a big change. Requires a lot of computation, and it produces incredible results because it takes the knowledge of everything that's there and produces it. Now, the danger with something like that is left ungoverned, unmanaged, it can create a lot of chaos. So depending on what application to use it for, if there is a wrong result, can that create catastrophe? Do you want to have AI manage your nuclear missiles? What if it makes a mistake and fires it at the wrong time? What do you want to have AI manage your grid? And what if it shuts it down one day for something? So you need to worry about what is the quantum of risk that is there and what's the likelihood of that risk. That's a risk-based question that you can ask. The second you can ask is not so much a risk-based, but about disclosure. Do people know that it's being used? Should they be knowing that it's being used? What is the thing that they need to do? And the third thing is all about fairness. Because you're asking the computer to make a decision, did you feed the right input into it? If you use the wrong data to train it, it'll produce the wrong results. Do people know what data they used? Can they understand it, especially when it becomes extremely large volumes of data and you have no idea, the human cannot understand it? Can you do that? Can you explain why you took the decision? Is there bias in the decision? So I think you're going to have to govern it at a risk-based approach, at a fairness-based approach, and at a transparency or disclosure list. So there will be governance that's going to be required.
Doc, this is also at a very high level for the governments and the policymakers, and it is not easy for smaller companies to get into this. So where do you think is the play here?
So I think the governments have a responsibility in providing guidelines. They should regulate but not snuff it out. They cannot have so much regulation that nothing happens, no innovation happens. Second, the bar for meeting some of these things should not be so expensive that the smaller guys cannot do it. They should be easy enough and simpler enough that it can be done. So today, for example, when you look at security, you have to be secure. And I'll use a simple example everybody is aware of. When you use credit cards, The payment card industry has standards on what should be done with credit card, what you can store and what you cannot store, and so on and so forth. But over a period of time, they have evolved it to the point where even a small merchant can meet that requirement. They may have to take the help of some other services, etc., but it's doable in an inexpensive and easy way. So I think what should be done is not just a matter of putting laws in place, but making sure that it's created in such a fashion where everybody can also jump into it and make that happen. Right. So that's going to be critical. And I think creating those uniform standards, and I'll use a very simple example. Like today, because the government mandated a standard on what fuel pumps look like, how should it be, anybody who makes a car can make sure that my car can go get gas filled somewhere. You need the same thing if you're going to be electric charged also. Right? Or when you come back in power and say we have standard of 110 volts or 212 volts in some part of the country, so anybody can manufacture something for 110 volts. If everybody said, no, you have to decide your own, then it will be very expensive for somebody to manage it. So the standard should be such that it helps everybody, it gives visibility into what is happening, but it doesn't impair progress. Even the small person should be able to do it and adopt it quickly enough that they can go forward from there.
Thank you, Doc. I know you have a time challenge, but I appreciate you coming and sharing your valuable thoughts with us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mateen. Yep.